Thank you, Terry. So I'm Dakota, and quite obviously, I am here to share my story. So I'm going to do that now. So I believe that my life has two parts, the before and the after. In the before, I heard children should be seen and not heard more than I heard I love you. The before was a place where food was scarce, a place where I would hide in the closet and eat the pet food because I was just that hungry. In this before period, I watched my biological brother and mother experience abuse at the hands of my biological father. I learned how to be a good liar so I wouldn't experience this firsthand. I experienced the pressure to be perfect, and there was no excuse for anything less. I was expected to uphold perfect grades, come in first in my majorette competitions, and be a caregiver to my 5 other siblings after school and on the weekends. If these expectations were not met, I knew what would be waiting for me on the other side, as the punishments were made very clear. For a little while, holding myself to these unrealistic expectations kept me safe. And then one day, they didn't. Some of the most vivid memories from my childhood are moments when my brother and biological mother had fallen to my biological father's abuse. My brother had borrowed a game from his friend at school, and I cleaned up his cuts. My mother had come home 10 minutes late from work. I chased her down the road on my bike, begging her to come back after she'd been thrown out. I remember my first day. I was sitting at the table doing homework, and one of the dogs had gone to the bathroom on the kitchen floor. Before I knew it, I was on the floor. Somehow this was my fault. None of this is easy to share, but I also understand how important it is to create a full picture of the children that we're helping and the afters that we're creating at Camp Susan Curtis, because that's truly where mine began. I began seeing that there was an after and that this was maybe something I might deserve when I was about 8 years old. This was the year when I was introduced to a place where it was believed that children should not only be seen, but also heard. This place was Camp Susan Curtis. At camp, we talk about how this is a place where kids get to be a kid and there's nothing truer. At camp, I didn't have to worry about making dinner or babysitting. When I was offered the opportunity to experience a summer camp, I couldn't wait. I was never afraid of leaving home. Honestly, I couldn't leave fast enough. The day I got my packing list in the mail, my suitcase was packed a full month and a half before I even got to go. Walking through the gates was a feeling I'll never forget. It was the most at home I had ever felt in the 8 years of my life. My first summer wasn't always easy. It was hard to let go of my caregiver tendencies. Even as a little cabin 6 girl, I wanted to hang out with the counselors as I felt I fit in with them more than I fit in with my peers. I had to learn how to be a kid. I didn't know how to play. I didn't know how to let go, and I was afraid of making mistakes. But by the end of those 2 weeks, I let go, I gave in, and I began to believe in the life that could be. I went back to school that fall, and I started to realize that my home life wasn't really normal. There were kids who had 3 meals a day because that's what it meant to be taken care of, and food wasn't something to be earned. I realized that parents should help with homework, and it shouldn't be my job to make sure that everyone had done their homework at home. I was missing summer. I missed being a kid. I missed being heard. I'd learned what it felt like to be safe, and I missed it. When I arrived for my second year at camp, I couldn't hold it in. I had a counselor that I was very fond of. She made me feel very safe, and she made me feel like she really cared. Her name was Shawneen, and she was the first person I felt comfortable enough to tell my story to. I told her one night after Summit under the stars at Camp Susan Curtis, and I remember being told that I was brave and that I was strong. I spent the rest of the session just being a kid, catching frogs and swimming in the lake. My life seemed to move quickly after that. My biological parents got divorced. It was ugly. And my brother and I were used as bargaining chips. When asked to choose who I liked better, I always chose my biological father because I knew that's what was to be expected, and I knew that that's how I kept myself from being hurt. Then my biological father lost custody, so we moved in with my biological mother until she lost custody. Then I was introduced to the foster care system at 10 years old. My first placement wasn't ideal, but I was placed with my sister, so I felt extremely grateful. Although the expectation had been lifted, I still felt very parental towards her, and I wanted to protect her, more than I wanted to protect myself. This is what I think pushed me to strive for more in my life. Then I met Donna and Leon, who would later become my mom and dad. I found out I would be moving in with them while I was at camp one summer, and it couldn't have been more perfect. The two best parts of my life were coming together. My mom understood how important camp was to me, and she was always there to be sure I was signed up in time, and she cheered me on as I completed the LIT and CIT programs, and she was there to bring me for my first job interview, which was for camp. If I stop and think about what my life should have looked like, I'm terrified. If I hadn't spoken up, would I even be here? Would I be expected to still be taking care of my family? Would I have my own family? I still struggle with the question of what would have happened if I spoke up sooner, and why didn't I? I believe I will always have a little guilt that goes with me, but I've also come to understand that no 10-year-old should ever have to make the decision that I had been asked to make. Being a child who grew up in poverty and in foster care, the statistics would say I shouldn't have amounted to much. I should be working a dead-end job. I've now held 3 supervisory positions, and I'm only 25. My first of which was at camp. It was a goal of mine from year 1 as a camper to become a lifeguard and later the waterfront director. I dreamed big. I became a lifeguard at the age of 15 and worked my way up through the years to become the assistant waterfront director. The year that I turned 21, it was finally my time to be the waterfront director. I was the waterfront director at camp for 3 years. I was then promoted to the recreation director, which gave me the added responsibility of sports and games programming, which included archery. And most recently, I've become the bridge director. These positions have allowed me to step into supervisory roles in the workforce. They would tell you I shouldn't have graduated from high school. I graduated 3rd in my class. They would say I shouldn't have gone to college. I did. I received my Bachelor's of Science in Athletic Training from the University of Southern Maine in 2017. Only 3% of all foster children will go on to college, but I didn't stop there. I'm currently in my 3rd year of graduate school for occupational therapy at the University of Southern Maine, and I'm set to graduate this year. I never gave up. I was exposed to USM for the first time through a camp to campus trip when I was 15 years old. I'd previously never heard of it, and so it's a thank you to camp for sure for showing me the place I came to call home for 4 years. Resilient, brave, and strong are all words that people have used to describe me. And honestly, there are still times that I struggle with this because looking back, there really was no other option. I either kept pushing or my life would be very different from the one that I have built for myself. I wouldn't have had this mentality without the amazing support from what would become my camp family and my mom. These are all people who believed in me until I could believe in myself. I'm forever grateful that I got an after and that I found the courage, strength, and resiliency to get me there. And it all started at CSC.
Yay! Wow.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
That was great, Dakota.
Yeah. Yay.
We love you, Dakota.
Yeah.
We're giving you a standing ovation right now. You just can't see it.
You're very brave.
I'm so proud of you, Dakota. Thank you so much. I know how challenging it was for you to finally be in a place where you felt, we won't say comfortable, but you felt good and understood the importance of sharing your truths with a group of people. Thank you so much for what you did tonight. But you're not done yet. Did we lose you, Dakota?
Did I lose her?
Nope, still here.
Okay. Got some tissues?
We love you.
A lot.
So this is the time right now where we are going to engage everyone who's here. And if you have some questions, I can't tell if I'm muted or not right now.
You're okay, Terry.
I'm okay? Okay. If you have questions for Dakota, we invite you to put those in the chat. If you've not used Zoom before, if you generally, if you go to the bottom of your screen, there should be a little talk bubble that says chat, and you can click on that and you can type things into the box. And I'm going to take a look at those questions and we will pass those on to Dakota. So while people are thinking about that a little bit, Dakota, I know that one of the people you mentioned was Shawneen, who was one of your first counselors. So do you want to talk a little bit about kind of an interesting story that you have about Shawneen right now?
Yeah, so Shawneen actually kept in touch with me after that summer. We wrote cards back and forth. And then once I went to my now adopted home with my, what I call my real family, we kind of lost touch. But so part of being in grad school, I have to complete a fieldwork placement. And the elementary school I'm at, she's actually a teacher. So small world. And it's crazy because for me, I thought that I was just some kid in her very wide, vast range of people that she's interacted with. But she actually stopped me in the hallway one day and she's like, I know this might be weird, but, and I was like, and I finished the sentence for her. I was like, you were my camp counselor. And she's like, I didn't know if you'd remember me. I was like, of course I remember you. So it was kind of cool to catch up. And I'm sure it was weird for her to see me as an adult when the last time she saw me, I was 9 years old and tiny. So.
All right, so we've got some questions coming in. The chat was disabled temporarily, but it's back up and going now. So if you tried to type a question, you can go back in there and you'll be able to do that. So one of the questions that we have is, which job or role have you enjoyed most during your time at Camp Susan Curtis?
Ooh. I think the obvious answer is just the waterfront director. I worked so hard for that. And especially since it's an age requirement, it was difficult being, 19 years old and ready for the job, but not actually ready for the job because I was only 19. And it was also just rewarding because, again, I had to work so hard for it, and there were multiple certifications I completed for it, which just gave me a great sense of accomplishment, especially my lifeguard instructor, because that is not an easy one, but I did it. And I mean, I just like a challenge. So it's been really fun to do all of the different positions I've had at camp, but that one's probably the one I'm most proud of.
Great, thank you, Dakota. So we actually have a question from one of our new campers this summer, and she wants to know how your very first day at camp was.
So my experience, I guess, is different from other campers. I was never homesick. So I walked down, and this was before we had vans to bring our luggage. So we walked our luggage down the road. So we walked it down the road, and I got there, and my parents tried to help me make my bed. And I said, nope, you can get out of here. And so, I mean, I just loved it. Again, it was hard. It was hard for me to connect with peers, but my staff was really great at trying to get me in with my age group. I liked being able to experience all the different things that camp had to offer between the lake, hiking. Because I wasn't leading, I didn't get lost. Yeah, so I loved it. I thought it was so cool, all the different things that camp does, like between the singing and campfires. And at that point, we had the theater program, which I just thought was the coolest thing. Yeah, so I guess that was kind of my first day. It was just a whole lot of, wow, there is so much, and I'm so excited.
Thanks, Dakota. So can you talk a little bit about how the camp staff gets to have one-on-one time with campers?
Yeah, so it's obviously changed over the years. We have to be in sight of someone else, so we're not quite always alone with a camper, but there are plenty of opportunities for campers to have conversation with staff that they're comfortable with, which I think is so important because, like I said, I wasn't comfortable telling my story to just anyone, or where anyone could hear me share my story. So the great thing about camp is it's so open, so you can feel like you're alone, but people can see what's happening. But back then it was just, I went out after summit and had a talk on the porch, which we still do sometimes if campers request it. I think that's the great thing we do as staff is we really try to leave that open and let them know that we're there for them, whatever they may need. And even if they just come up to us and say, hey, I really want to share something with you, but I don't want to do it here, we know the appropriate spots to do that. So we make
Great.
it happen.
Thanks, Dakota. Did you ever get support from Camp Susan Curtis during the school year? And if so, what did that look like?
So I think in the beginning, I didn't really, beyond just my staff members who kept in touch, I had a lot of people who wrote me letters, between campers and Shawneen, who sent me those cards every once in a while. It just felt that was my connection. And for me, being 8 years old, that was really special. And it felt like someone was out there looking out for me. As I got older, it changed a little because I became my own advocate and I could talk to, and especially once Terry came on board, I knew I could reach out to her if I needed anything, which was really great.
Great. We've got another camper question, which was, what was your favorite activity at camp? Not overnights.
You know, no, I'm not even going to try. No. Oh, man. So I actually wasn't a good swimmer, so it wasn't even the waterfront. I'm going to be honest about that too. I really liked nature. We used to have Hidden Beach, which is now not so much a beach as a shallow water wading area. But we would walk there and we would catch frogs, which anyone who knows me, they're not surprised by that being my favorite at all. And archery, I was actually really good at archery as a camper. So I love that. And it was, again, something I hadn't seen yet. So that was cool.
Great. What set your sights on lifeguarding?
So it's so interesting too how this has shifted. When I was a camper, being a lifeguard was the cool thing to do. And not that it's not cool now, I think it's the coolest job, but I think that people's perspectives have changed about it. And I think that's just because we've had less lifeguards. And so you spend more time at the waterfront, but then just about everyone was. So it was like, again, the cool thing to do. And I'm a kid who, once I set a goal, I stick to it even after it became the uncool thing to do. So I just stuck with it. And it, again, it's that challenge and that great sense of accomplishment, especially being the kid who was a red swimmer up until they were 11, which anyone who doesn't know, the red section maybe goes up to my waist. That's for kids who can't swim. That's where I was. Now I'm a great swimmer. I'm a great lifeguard. I just want to say that. I feel like I've said I'm a bad swimmer a lot. That was then. This is now.
Not only are you a great swimmer, but you taught yourself strokes in order to take your water safety instructor course. So I think you've moved past that red swim section.
So.
Exactly. So when you returned to camp for, for your second and third summers, what was one of the first things you did or the first thing you went when you got back to camp? Like, what did you miss the most?
So I think I just missed people who knew me and took the time to hear me. So it was just really exciting to come back and see staff that I had seen before. And I know that the first night I totally went to the theater to try out for the play because that's what you did. And then it was exciting to see kids who had been in my cabin before. There was one girl that I was friends with all through cabin 6 through 9. And so once we built that relationship, every time I'd go back, I'd be like, where's Babe? That was her name. I was like, where is she? I gotta make sure she's here. So that was really, those were the big things, just those relationships.
Great. I'm so glad somebody's asking this next question because I think it really highlights the family connections we have at camp. And that question is, did any of your siblings also get to benefit from attending CSC?
Sorry, I missed the second part of that.
Did any of your siblings get to benefit from attending?
I don't know, Mom, did they? So I was the first one. Again, I moved in and that was one of the first things I was like, so Mom, there's this thing I do in the summer. You gotta call them. And then from there, she was like, so Dakota's going, who else can go? So it's been an ongoing string. My mom is a wonderful person who has adopted many, many children and fostered, whether we've adopted them or not, they have gone to camp. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. We have some happy memories here. So not a question, but a great memory about celebrating your adoption when you came back as a second year LIT, both from your, probably who was your staff member at that point and somebody who was an LIT with you.
Yes, a very patient staff member who sat with me in the woods, which is why I no longer, yeah, that was an experience.
Another question is, did you finally feel connected to your peers? And if so, how long did that take for you?
I think my staff members did a really great job of pushing me and making me think it was my idea to hang out with people my age. And the other great thing was in the different activities, there are different kids of different age groups. So it wasn't like I was always with the 8-year-olds, which I think really helped me become more comfortable because I gradually worked my way down to my age group. But probably by the end of the first summer, honestly, I had friends in my cabin, and I think a lot of that was the exposure. And camp is a very unique situation where you bond because you're suddenly in the woods and it's all new and you're trusting all of these people to keep you safe. So yeah, probably by the end of the session. And then the second year, it was definitely easier. I wasn't the same, like I was drawn to my staff members, but it wasn't that same like friendship that I was looking for.
So we've got
I think we've got time for about one more question.
Yep. We've got a wonderful comment actually to close this out. So it says, you've chosen a great profession and will be a wonderful occupational therapist. You'll get lots of job offers. Thanks so much for sharing your story. You're living a very powerful after. So thank you, Dakota, so much for being so willing to share and to answer questions.